Welcome to the Texas Grassroots Alliance live stream today, March 27th. Happy Wednesday to all. Happy Wednesday, Neil. How's it going today?
It's going pretty well. Hello, Alex. Hello, audience. Everything's going good.
Well, we're going to highlight two articles that grassroots organizers have created here recently. This is a part of building out grassroots journalism in Texas and making sure that we're getting insights from grassroots organizers who are working on the front lines, connected to people on the front lines, to be able to give a perspective that we don't often see in traditional media. And so we're going to first, Neil, we're going to highlight your article from the Houston Democracy Project.
Great. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Hello. So this is the Houston Democracy Project blog, which is updated pretty much daily, 9 days out of 10. This is my project, HoustonDemocracyProject.com. And I'm talking here about having been to the Harris County Democratic County Convention this past Sunday. I have a few observations. The blog post I wrote was about Representative Colin Allred, who is the nominee for the United States Congress to defeat the authoritarian Ted Cruz. So that's very important, right? And he's from the Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, right, Alex?
Yep. Mainly connected to the Dallas community is kind of where he's been working, but up here in North Texas.
Right. Okay. And so the party has moved its organizing units. It was state Senate districts, and now when you go to the party conventions, and this is true for both Republican and Democrats, you go to the party convention and you sit. At least at one point, you are broken into caucuses contingent on your congressional district. So I live in Congressional District 38, which is quote unquote represented by Wesley Hunt, who I've never seen. He just spews Republican talking points, and I believe he is a hologram. I'm not convinced there is actually a Wesley Hunt, and I think they beam his image in with talking points. And Representative Allred spoke to each of the congressional districts assembled at the Harris County Democratic Convention. They kept telling us that 1 in 6 Democrats in Texas lives in Harris County, and the representative said, he said it twice, this is the most important election in U.S. history, and that might be true. Of course, the problem is, as Alex and I were talking about a little earlier, maybe this is, but if we lose, we're totally screwed. And then if we win, then 2028 will be the most important election. And we don't seem to be able to get at the underlying Republican or anti-democratic threat. Maybe if our systems, Alex, worked better and folks' needs were met a little better, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation.
No, I think that's exactly it, Neil, right? We've been hearing for the last several elections that it's the most important election. And, every election is important, but I think what they're trying to speak to is this threat against democracy. But
right.
To what you said, we're not solving the threat to democracy. And so every election is another opportunity for those who are trying to undermine it and end it to continue to achieve their goal. The fact that it's at risk every election is the hugely problematic part.
It's hugely problematic. And actually, as I read my blog post, I could have broken. I may go in and rewrite it and make that point a little better. But my niece was visiting me from out of town all weekend, and I'm doing my best. So I'm like, okay, man, it's the most important election, yeah. But what he didn't say was, this is the most important election ever, and I'm going to speak to every member of the Harris County Democratic State Legislative Delegation and get their commitments about the resources they'll be putting in for the hiring of canvassers, their cooperation with the County Democratic Party coordinated campaign, the unique knowledge of their district that they'll be bringing in on how to reach or speak to voters in your neck of the woods. Also, none of the 11 Democrats on Houston City Council were there, and when they were in runoffs last year, I'm the Democrat in the race. I'm the Democrat. Well, here was a chance beyond the need for these folks to be out there hustling up and rustling up the vote. they could be there thanking the rank and file, because as you might imagine at these things, this was a disproportionately older crowd, older probably than the average voter. And these are the hours of our lives, and they should have been respected. Now, all the Democrats there, from the most moderate or reactionary to the most progressive, they were there using the hours of their lives, volunteering, and they should have been respected. So that was my thought about Representative Allred, and that was the point of my post there. And I just want to highlight a couple other thoughts that I had about the convention. Not enough electeds. Representative Allred. So in these conventions here, and these conventions, Republicans and Democrats had them across the state. So all the counties but that's actually an interesting question. I wonder how many of the 254 counties had a Democratic convention. And for our viewers, you're watching Texas Grassroots Alliance live stream. This is for a forum for Texas grassroots leaders to show what they're doing, bring people in. I'm talking about the Houston Democracy Project. Alex will talk about his many ventures. We're both connected by the Texas Grassroots Alliance. And please contribute, donate, go to HoustonDemocracyProject.com. Grassroots organizers need resources. Campaigns come and go. They don't leave structures of community, don't leave structures of turnout. They just come, recreate the wheel, and go. And these programs, we do 2 or 3 a week, different hosts, different subjects, different topics, all over the state. That's what you're watching. Watch this program. It's exciting. It's entertaining. You like it, and share it. 2 other observations I had. Whoever wrote, there must have been some first person who said showing up is half the game. So let's praise that person. They elect officers. They elect positions. They elect positions. So at the state party convention in June in El Paso, they will select from each congressional district 1 or 2, and I don't even know. Right here, I am more informed than some other citizens, but I don't know. Representatives to the Democratic National Committee, and a couple people. One person who made a speech who will be in El Paso seeking to be a representative to the Democratic National Committee from Congressional District 38 is a political consultant, political strategist. I will get emails from this person all the time. Send money, blah blah blah. I really don't want a political consultant or a political strategist as my representative to the DNC. Am I going to go to El Paso to oppose it? I don't know. That's a lot of damn money to go to El Paso, and we all have family obligations and things. I don't know. So maybe there should be a system where I don't have to. I like El Paso. I got no problem with El Paso. The state convention should sometimes be in El Paso. There's a lot of folks there, but I wish there was a mechanism. This person may well be able to expense this trip. I don't know that, but most of us can't. So I can't institutionally necessarily keep up with that. There were other people who applied for various positions within a rules committee, resolutions committee within CD 38. They were some names that are long established. I may volunteer to be on some of these committees as a newer, as someone who's not been involved, because I want to have a voice. So you do have the opportunity to call your local Democratic Party, ask how to get in the rules process, and I'm not. And again, it's a commitment of time and it's a commitment of privilege. And the last thing I'd say, I had a brief conversation. This is a theme I've been hitting with some Palestinian protesters who were there. There was no protest at the convention. In this case, I've been to many events where there have been protests. I spoke to them, 2 women, talking about the need to bridge some of the gaps of knowledge, communication, understanding, membership between the pro-Palestinian movement and the Democratic Party and all of our protest movements. That really what was about. For example, we talked about the effort to oppose the HISD takeover. That's a big, significant movement, but every movement's in its own compartment. We keep saying to young people, young, diverse people, young people, hey, get involved. And so, they say, well, ceasefire now. And the answer is, oh, not that way, call a cop. What's this shit? Right? So we can't, right? We can't. So we're telling the young people get involved. They do get involved. They do organize. they're ahead of the curve because so many of the things they were saying 3 or 4 months ago are now becoming orthodoxy, right? You're seeing Chuck Schumer make some of these points. So they were like protest so frequently is, and like we strive to be here at TGA, we're ahead of the curve, and we're still like, hey, get the hell away, don't bug my meeting. So those are some observations from the Harris County Democratic Convention, Houston Democracy Project. That's me, and appreciate everyone watching. Thanks, Alex. What do you got?
Well, we got something from Chuck on Twitter, who gave us a comment saying that way too many Texas counties had no Democratic convention on Saturday. I'm not too sure if Chuck knows how many did have one, but this is fundamentally what we're talking about when we talk about infrastructure. Now, in this case, this is party infrastructure, right? The Democratic Party, county parties, and the conventions and all that kind of stuff. This is political party infrastructure. But one of the things that campaigns and large nonprofits and the political party rely on is free manual labor to be able to run their operations.
That's what Allard wanted.
Yeah, and so we're seeing this lack of conventions throughout Texas, according to Chuck, and even lack of diversity amongst the conventions in a lot of cases, because there are only so many people who can offer free manual labor to be able to do this work, and even that it's exploited, right? That this labor we're exploiting people's fears, we're exploiting their concerns to try to give them to try to get them involved in the infrastructure that, for a lot of people, yes, this is the most important election ever, but the next election is going to be the most important election till we fundamentally change what's going on, until we have systemic change of what's going on. And so crying wolf that this is the most important election is only going to work so many times for folks.
Right.
And we see a lot of disenfranchised voters who were tired before this rallying cry and have now become tired because of it. And I think some of the folks that we're seeing push back against that is these younger organizers who are, advocating for a ceasefire, advocating for the ending of the genocide that's happening in Palestine. And they're simply trying to say, like, look, this is a Democratic president that's in place. There's Democratic leadership. So don't tell me that voting for the Democrats is going to save us, because there's fundamental flaws that are happening right now. And we still know that wages have not been increased. We know that healthcare inequities are still not being resolved, even though we celebrated 14 years of the Affordable Care Act. We still have a huge amount of income inequality. Our environment is continuing to struggle. And so across the board, people are pushing back on this false bill of goods that, we're going to save this country by voting Democratic this election. And the Democratic Party is fundamentally struggling with this. And so as grassroots organizers, we prioritize ourselves being connected to the community where people live, where people are interacting with each other, to understand what is the issues that we can try to resolve. And ultimately, people want to see true change. And there's still too many people within the political party system that are still okay with the status quo. And that is a fundamental problem, and why there's this tension right now going into this election, that a lot of people are worried about what turnout's going to be. And why Colin Allred is trying to say, we need everyone's support, right? Well, Biden was in Dallas, raised $5 million one evening. Allred has raised millions of dollars through his campaign. And yet you're talking about going to El Paso to be a potential contributor to the political party of the Democratic Party, and struggling to be able to have the resources to do that, because everyone's expecting everyone to kind of go on their own dime. But grassroots organizers are fundamentally majority unpaid or underpaid. And even those who are full-time paid do not have full-time benefits always. So So we have this exploitative model of using labor to benefit the pocket the to line the pockets of a few, um, while you know trying to fend off fascism to a certain point,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Trying to implement improved status for people's lives to a certain point, and people are just fed up with it. We
Yeah,
fundamentally need to make sure that no matter what part we are engaging in our community and in the political process, that there is resource distribution, that
right,
there is an end to exploitation,
right.
and that the people's voice is actually being elevated.
Right.
I think this comes to a lot of the issues that we're running into, and that we've heard from feedback from people who went to various party conventions this last weekend.
That's just a lot of right. I think I'll write a blog post on that. That's a good because it's a simple point. It's just some again. God bless El Paso. I got the convention ought to be in El Paso sometime whenever it's time. But what a bunch of bullshit to have a voice to. It's not just the plane fare. Um, it's um, it's the hotel. The 3 night whatever it is. I know who and so the people whom will and you can't tell me that some of the people there won't be sponsored by campaigns and by establishment actors. I haven't really thought about it before now, but I mean, that's got to be some substantial, and then beyond, and then if in my congressional district there's at least one political consultant who can take the trip, potentially writing it off, it must be going on all over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Must be going on all over, and that's you can't drive. It's 700 and something miles.
From Houston, you're saying, right?
Yeah, yeah. Let alone Beaumont. That's our friend Sabrina over there in Texarkana.
In Bowie County, yeah.
Yeah, that's even further. That's even east of Houston.
Yep. Yeah, so I think these conversations are going to be important for us to continue to have. I know once again we've talked about a couple of weeks ago. We need to have these uncomfortable conversations. People fear dissenting conversations. They fear criticism, but we actually do need to have them because this can help us start talking about the solution. And what we're saying in the Texas Grassroots Alliance is the key solution is that we continue to advocate for resources for grassroots organizers. They are the foundation of what's going to be able to happen in Texas. They are the key to what's going to be able to happen in Texas. And if we continue to burn them out and lose amazing talent and try to recruit new talent every few years, because it's about 2 to 4 years that a grassroots organizer will get burnt out and either taken a step back from the work entirely, or if they do get embedded in this work, they may leave the community in order to have career opportunities to be able to do it. So we have to fundamentally change this. So we want your help. We want your help to be able to support grassroots organizers to have these conversations in these key places, so that as this election is the most important election, as has been said, and the next election will be the most important election, we actually will build momentum to actually solving this problem long term, versus this short term fear mongering that happens. Even though it is legitimate fear of fascism, it's still
Right,
fear mongering
right.
because right now they're not currently trying to solve the fundamental problem, the underlying problem. So we're saying grassroots organizers can be the workforce that can help see this through long term, but we've got to sustain them, and we can't keep losing them and keep burning them out the way that we currently do within the system of organizing within our communities and political organizing. So I know we spent a little bit extra time on this article. I'm going to highlight another article real quick for us, Neil, that comes from Lone Star Left, and Michelle Davis's great article from where I'm at in Tarrant County, that nobody likes Tony Tenderholt. Tarrant County voters would be throwing away their vote if they reelect one of the most disliked and ineffective members of the Texas House. And so Tony Tenderholt represents Arlington, which for a lot of people may not realize is over 400,000 people. It is larger than most major cities that we recognize in the United States. and it's sitting right in between Fort Worth and Dallas. Um, and so she goes through to show the alliance of far right Texas legislators that continue to get funded by Tim Dunn, who we've talked about in previous live streams. She highlights the incompetence of Tony Tinnerholt, and being challenged by people in his own party, and where he has fundamentally just shown that he is not there to actually pass legislation to represent Texans, much less residents in Arlington and in Tarrant County, but he is there as an agent of chaos. He is there simply to disrupt, to cause issues, and to undermine democracy, um, because that's what he's being funded to do by Tim Dunn and all of those. He continues this Christian nationalism, um, you know, line of thinking and communicating to rile up the extreme elements of our communities that are buying into the Christian nationalism, which is not neither Christian or patriotic. It's just it's I don't know. There's a number of ways you can frame them. Fascists, I like to frame them as the Confederates of today.
Horse hockey.
Yeah, they're simply traitors, right? They're not
Yeah.
really
Traitorous horse
um,
hockey.
they're not really pursuing what our what we are trying to say we want this country to be, which is a better, brighter future for people that all can participate. They really want just chaos and destruction.
And
So
now Trump's selling Bibles. You see
yeah,
that? Hey, I got a Bible. Yeah.
so this was a great article by Michelle with Lone Star Left talking about Tony Tinnerholt, and I think the opportunity is, once again, it's tied to the conversation you and I are having, Neil, about the Democratic conventions. It's like we know the threats that are there that we need to get rid of, and we can simply fire these people, right?
Right.
By voting collectively, we can fire these people. Now, the representation that we want in all of these races, of course, may not be where we want to be eventually, but it is going to be an improvement, And I don't say this in terms of Denise Wilkerson, who's challenging Tony Tinnerholt, that she's not a quality candidate or anything like that. But across the board, people may be running into situations where, these candidates are not what we want them to be. So we fundamentally need to have these conversations and recognizing, okay, we've got to get rid of these people who are absolutely trying to destroy democracy.
Right.
You have Trump at the top of the ticket. You have a Tony Tinnerholt who's in Tarrant County. You have Ted Cruz who's in the U.S. Senate, right? So we're all on board that we need to get rid of these folks. The problem that a lot of folks are running into is that then I've got to vote for somebody who I feel is also not going to be the potential best representation. So whether it's Biden or whether it's Colin Allred or whatever it is, people have frustrations with them as well for legitimate reasons, right? That
Right.
they are not going to serve all of their interest. So the path forward for us is we've got to continue to have these conversations to reconcile what we're going to do. And when we do put all our hope on a Biden or a Colin Allred, that will frustrate the hell out of people, and that
Right.
will disenfranchise voters. But if we actually can start talking about, okay, with this election, this is where we're at, and this is how we're going to work together to move forward to get out of this situation where we are not satisfied with an alternative. Um, um, then we need to have those conversations, right? We need to be able to show a vision of how we're going to organize together. And this comes down to the heart of what we're talking about. Then we need a robust, sustained grassroots organizing workforce to be able to make that happen.
Right. And so we've covered, I think, a good length the expense and the need. But just to reiterate two things quickly, Colin Allred, most important election ever. Well, dude, where's your record of getting, if that's the case? Okay, yes, we as citizens ought to be active. where's your record of getting your fellow elected officials to pitch in consistently? Who did you speak to here in Harris County? Okay, because I'll tell you this, that I am surely not the only one. I know I'm not the only one with this frustration with elected officials. They couldn't really even trudge themselves to the damn convention, the great majority of our Democratic elected officials, to thank a disproportionately older rank and file. Thanks for your efforts. Hey, right? Here's a bottle of water, right? Here's something, right? Nothing. Hey, and instead it's how much free more labor will you be giving? And can you buy that plane ticket to El Paso? And then secondly, this is not a Bernie Hillary revival show. But you can't keep telling young people get involved and then tell them no, not like that. So here's twice in 8 years. So Bernie gets, and I don't care who you were for. This is sometimes I don't want to touch it because I don't want to bring up 10-year-old fights, even though they still go on in some ways. But what I'm saying is you had a substantial portion of our primary electorate for someone 8 years ago. A lot of it was youth driven, and 4 years ago. No, not like that. Don't get involved like that. You're a problem. Now here's the Palestinian movement. No, don't get involved like that. Here's some young influencer. Here's the way to do it. Here, we'll show you a model of how you ought to do that, and we'll prop up that person. And this is just some bullshit. And then okay, if that model worked, like if in my mind I could say, hey, that's some bullshit, but look, we're winning statewide victories and the threats to democracy have been curbed, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm wrong. But no, we've won nothing. The legislature is going to lurch to the right because of the Republican primary electorate continues to move right. Our state legislators are going to keep saying, hey, I've got to have relationships with these people to get anything, as they move further and further to the right. New young people are brought in to organizing and involvement every 4 years. And we're like, no, you're disruptive. You're pie in the sky. You're bullshit. And now we're living 9 months away from a Viktor Orban type society with migrant roundups. Mm-hmm. So where's the record that says, if you could prove me that the way we're told to operate is working, I'd be like, well, I'm barking up the wrong tree, But no, no, that's not what happened. Yeah. The ship keeps sinking, and which we can write the ship, but it's just bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is where organizers working together through, like the Texas Grassroots Alliance, and we're connecting with hundreds of organizers across the state, both big and small communities. Various efforts being done through protest movements and trying to connect people to have those conversations. It is about us building the power to be able to change the direction of what's going on. And I think what folks it's going to be really important to realize is that in 2024, we're going to have these conversations that are going to be tense, and there's going to be tension because there are people who are looking beyond just this election and what we need to do in the next couple of decades to actually fundamentally change what's going on. And there's people who are just simply trying to survive this election and thinking that, maybe something else will come along the way if we can just get past this hurdle. And those two different perspectives are going to cause tension because, I'm probably more in the former line of thinking, like we got to start preparing plans for decades now, and we've got to understand like the process of redistricting in 2031 is going to be hugely important, right? How do we get to that point of changing that process? Well, we got to look at who's the lieutenant governor. We got to look at who's the House majority. We got to look at who's the governor, right? We got to look at all of these different pieces and figure out how are we going to build the power to actually not only get rid of the people who are causing the most harm, but actually trying to rally around people that are going to help us solve some of these things. And right now, there was a great conversation I had with the grassroots organizer this weekend that talked about Texas Republicans have had total control in Texas longer than Putin has had control in Russia.
Yeah.
That's that one party rule that we've had in Texas.
I
And
moved here 26 years ago. It's going to be like, don't worry. It's the demographics are going to switch it. Don't worry. I haven't seen right. I haven't seen a single statewide victory. The 26 years I've lived here.
Yeah, and it's this belief that we can't do both things, that we can't fight against the fascists and we can't try to hold those who are wanting to fight the fascists accountable. It's that we can't do both things, right? And we need to be able to do both things and more at the same time. And the only way we're going to build that trust is by building relationships with each other, working alongside each other. And the only way we're going to be able to last is if we actually share resources, if we actually distribute resources to folks who are on the ground, doing the amazing work to go into communities that, to be honest, a lot of campaigns won't go into these communities because their analysis is only going to be on active voters, and active voters is code for white voters because white voters have been the most active voters. Yet in the 2020 census, 95% of the growth was people of color. So that means we need to build out our infrastructure to be able to engage more diverse communities. And yet everyone says, let's get money to the campaigns, who the campaigns are telling us we're only going to go after active voters.
Right.
So it's a vicious cycle that we need people to understand. If you have resources, give them to grassroots organizers who are actually going to be able to expand who they're going to be able to reach out to. And they're not going to do it with the party first, because a lot of these diverse communities have a lot of distrust with either party. And so we've got to build relationships in those communities. That takes time, that takes work, that takes actual commitment, and that takes actual resources. So it's frustrating when we don't see when people aren't seeing the issues when it comes to these different elements of the industry as a whole, which the political apparatus is an industry because billions of dollars are going through it every year.
Yeah, it's a fucking racket.
Yeah. So so the only thing we can say is, I guess, based on these two articles, is that yes, it's true. This is an important election, maybe the most important election, could potentially be our last election. And it's also true that the next election will be the most important election if we have another one. And that the only way we're going to get out of this is by building long-term sustainability to actually systemically change what the hell is going on in our state and what the hell is going on in our country.
Very good.
All right. Well, to close us out, we love your support. You can scan the QR code, donate to the Texas Grassroots Alliance.
Get it now.
Any donations received will go directly to collaborations like the TGA Livestream or like the TGA Summit that we had on our inaugural summit last year in Houston, and are looking to have a second one in Dallas this year. It'll go to resources to key collaborations that are happening, like with the Texas Poor People's Campaign and several other collaborative efforts that are happening. So donate to help support organizers so they can continue the great work that they're doing.
Go to HoustonDemocracyProject.com, read the blog consistently, and donate there too.
Absolutely. And subscribe and become a paid subscriber to Lone Star Left, because of the amazing work that Michelle continues to do on that front. And we need to support grassroots journalism to continue to get these insights and these stories.
If you consistently give to candidates, first of all, good on you. But secondly, we'll be there long term. We'll be there long term. We'll be here after the next election cycle, wherever we need to be. Ballot box, writing, keyboard, streets, wherever it's needed to be.
All right. Final note to close us out. Chuck did respond that the potential out of the 254 counties, there was maybe a little over 100 counties based on his insights. And so, probably under half the counties had county conventions, and yeah, that's for that political infrastructure. That's a lot of work to try to build that out. Let's continue to support grassroots organizers so we can build it out in the right way. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks for watching.
we'll see you again this week.
We sure will.